good folks to geek out with, because it is the perfect sort of, like thing to do. And I'm so excited about today as well. The podcast is so much fun to watch. And it really talks about a lot of technology and cool things. So you've listened to a few of their episodes. What do you think before we get a chance to hang out with Tyler?
I have. I jumped on their website and found a podcast called Building in Baseball. Apparently, one of the brothers, Eddie, is big into baseball. And just like him, those are two of my favorite topics, construction and baseball. And they did a whole podcast on the importance of teamwork and communication. And they said, it's critical in baseball or any team sport for that matter, but it's also critical in construction, teamwork and communication. You can't overdo it, And so that one really resonated with me. And I just love their sense of humor and they know how to have fun. And I just, and the other thing, they live in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is like 2 hours from me. And so it's funny how, one of the nice things about COVID, there aren't a lot of nice things about COVID, but in some ways I feel like it's helped us connect with more people through this platform, people that I probably still wouldn't know about them, if it weren't for our series that we do together. We're uncovering all these really cool people because we're having to get creative and do a little more research. And I'm so glad we found these guys. They're really cool.
Yes. Bravo, Victoria, because it's, Mike Plant last week. So talk about cool construction projects, level of technology coming in. And, before we really dive in, I got to geek out with you about my tool or item of the week. So I have an old 71 Super Beetle that I've been tinkering on, but it's in a weird spot. And so actually jumping the battery and kind of working on it's been a problem until I found this battery pack. Holy cow. All right. So these things have been out on the market for a while and they're a little bit smaller, but Scott, this thing will jump my truck. It will probably jump a semi. I'm so impressed with the amount of power that this little battery pack holds now. Talk about innovation and technology. And now I'm going to be able to go tinker on my car later. Like, what? It's awesome. We have to keep innovating and thinking forward, and it affects all industry. And so, yeah, their podcast about baseball and teamwork is awesome. So for all of our viewers watching, before we bring Tyler Campbell on, go check out his podcast after you're done watching the show. So don't hit pause, just finish the lesson after we're done, and then go listen to Brothers Construction Podcast. So it's some awesome stuff. But so Scott, you're going to be hanging out for the rest of the afternoon. So all of our viewers, if they have any questions, you are here and around to answer them.
I am. And I think it's so cool too. We'll need to make sure Tyler goes back and watches our chat with Mike Plant last week. I don't know if Victoria did this by design, but it was so cool that we talked to Mike Plant with the Atlanta Braves about baseball and building this cool stadium in Atlanta. And now we're talking to these construction brothers and they love baseball too. I think Eddie loves baseball. I'm not so sure about Tyler, but anyway, you can find that out when you talk with him. And, but yeah, I'll be here, I'll be watching, and I'll be back at the end to close it out.
I love it. Thank you so much, Scott. So speaking of which, Tyler, welcome. Hey, how's it going?
Going good. You guys put me in a corner. I was just doing in my juices.
Nobody puts Tyler in a corner. Yeah.
Nobody puts baby in a corner. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us for lunch today. Because, obviously we're kind of blending some things we're all nerds about, but I'm really excited too about you and your brothers' topics and how they're thinking forward with technology and innovation and all of these things that are really critical to see the industry continue to move forward.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of fun to put our podcast together. And a lot of what we do is we try to find ways to tie topics that are directly and indirectly related to the industry. So one of those things we did recently, we had Amy Morin, who is an author and a TED speaker on our show. And she, she's just so eloquent, just made us look like morons, but she is, a psychotherapist, and she just has so much good stuff to say about the industry and mental health. And so we dive into the technology, we do, and we dive into the construction side of things a lot. That's at the center of what we do. But there are a lot of other parts of what we do that we don't really talk about as much, right? So I get excited to just explore other industries and try to find ways to relate it back to our own. So it's been a lot of fun.
I love it because there are a lot of ways to tie this in. I recently wanted to get a 3D printer because I need a plumbing part that is like permanently out of stock.
Yeah.
All right. I wish I was part of the younger generation. But then talking about, how happy are you when you get to create all day long and at the end of the day say, I built this? And you actually know this because you are 6th generation construction.
Yeah.
That's real. Can you tell me a little bit about 6 generations? What are your family? What do they get up to?
All right. So, 6 verifiable generations. And I was, just thinking earlier, man, I need to make a chart of this, like go back to my grandpa and just say, all right, here's everybody, like, here we go. So I could just bring out a flash sheet and just be like, okay, so here we go. I can verify it right here now. So I need to do that. So my grandfather, Poppy, he was in the industry. My dad, he was in the industry. And so I've just grown up around this stuff. And then obviously my great grandpa, he was in the industry as well. Think there was some bootlegging and some moonshining in there at some point too, but that sort of thing. But he ended up back into the construction industry. But yeah, it's part of us around here. It's in the blood. And, I take that a step further. Like, I love building, I love construction. Like, I like creating from scratch. That stuff is amazing. But I also take that further and say, I like building up people too. I like building in all different fashions. I like creating. So the creative process of bringing a podcast to life every single week, the creative process of graphic design or website design, building, just anything, everything. I love that. And
you're an artist who wants to pass on this love and passion through, it sounds like, a lot of different mediums. Your podcast is one of them, which is awesome. But tell me a little bit more about what are some more of the unique projects that you worked on in your career?
So a couple, from our perspective, we worked on some facilities that were golf entertainment facilities. And if I use the name of them, then I'd have to pay a lot of money.
I know nothing, but what? I also loved, okay, cool, yeah.
It's one of those. It's one of those.
Yeah. So what was that like?
Yeah, so we worked on 45 of those across the U.S. and basically working structural steel. So if you were to go into any of those and look around, you would see our handiwork there. So that's a lot of fun.
I cannot wait now to host events there or have friends and be like, I know the people who did this and help coordinate it. That is absolutely beyond fantastic. So, 6 generations, that's a really long time to continue to encourage people to get into it. Why were skilled trades such a big part of your family?
I don't know. I feel like we liked being outdoors. We liked putting something together. I think we were kind of creative at heart. And so for us, it's being able to collaborate. It's being able to build teams together and get something done. I think from a skilled trades perspective, it's similar to sports. It's similar to baseball. It's similar to football, you name it, where you've got to bring a lot of people together cohesively to bring something to light and bring it out of the ground. And I don't know, I feel like that's the thing that we get a kick out of as just a family. We like the team aspects. We like the collaboration and we just want to do that better. That's I feel like a similar thing that we have all talked about through the years that I've talked about with my grandpa, my dad, and my brother. It's that's all in our hearts and what we like to do. So
that's amazing too. All right, so are there any conductors too? Because when I talk to kids, I'm like, look, being a general contractor is like being a conductor of an orchestra, because herding cats is not always a polite way to say things.
Yeah, it is. And so on top of everything too, I'm a musician, so I get that analogy as well. So played violin growing up, was in orchestras and stuff like that. So I get that. It is amazing to see. It's amazing to see the ripple effect when something goes wrong over here, what that can do to each person in the individual chairs as it goes down the line, right? So having that person in front, being able to orchestrate and bring things together is so critical. Otherwise, you just run into an absolute mess.
No
And
joke.
yeah, right now, a lot of what I'm seeing in the industry is a little bit of a pawning off, if that makes sense. So where the conductor is basically saying, I don't really have time to control the violins, so you handle it. And so you end up with like 4 or 5 different conductors, but no master conductor of the orchestra, and it ends up in a mess.
Oh yeah.
And so that's one of those things where it's a great age that we live in, that we can go out and hire virtual assistants and like get other people to help us out with things too. But at the end of the day, you start seeing that trickle down to where if you don't actually have your hands on it, you start losing the craft. You start losing your ability to bring everybody cohesively together and really focus on the team and managing that team to, to
Makes sense. Okay, so wait, random tangent question.
Oh,
How did you like math in school?
hated it.
Okay, that's insane. And now that's the language you speak,
Yeah.
right? Huh.
Yeah, right now, math is my main everyday. Like I have to use math in my everyday, but man, growing up, I was not a fan of it.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's so interesting because I'm, music, construction,
Yeah.
cookies, it's all fractions, some of them you eat, some of them you look at. I love it. So, okay, with the fact that your family's been in this for so long, explain sort of the differences on what it was like for your grandparents working for you right now in the industry.
What's really funny is that we actually interviewed my grandpa. So he's in his 90s, and we have been blessed to have him here. And so we actually had our dad go up and sit down with him, and we recorded the whole conversation. So I literally have that recording. And that one was our favorite because that's just family history that we get to preserve. It's so much fun. And so hearing our grandpa, we talked to him and we were like, hey, Pop, how many RFI did you send on a project? Like he worked on Millette Hall, which is a huge like arena style building up in Ohio at it was the University of Miami up in Ohio. And so he worked on that back in the 60s. And so he told us about that whole process. And we asked him, how many RFI did you have? He's like, I can't even spell RFI. I don't understand. Like, request for information did not happen because they talked. You know what I mean? And that's that insulated layer thing that I'm talking about, that I mentioned a few minutes ago, is that, we start to insulate ourselves from these problems to a point that we do need to create RFI in order to answer questions, and it comes up and down the chain and it breaks down. So it's really cool to go back and look at what Pop did, because what they did was they kept it simple. They used the kiss method, and
Yes.
it really did. And so it's just a lot of fun to hear his take on things and just see, we've advanced in some ways in the industry. We have, but in a lot of ways, craft and pride in what we do has just gone slowly downhill. It's turned into this thing where it's, that's not my job, or that's not my job. Like, well, I get that, but also like, pick it up. Let's see what we can do. Let's try, let's try to learn.
Well, part of it too, it is okay. Actually, hang on, before I ask my next question, just because you brought up a lot of amazing content that you have on your podcast, will you please tell our viewers what your podcast is and where they can find it?
Oh, yeah. So it's Construction Brothers, and you can see these wonderful, point the right way. Here you go. See those guys over there. So yeah, we've got a lot of different episodes. Mitch, if you check out the starter packs up there, that's a great place for people to look. The main bar.
And you also host this with your brother Eddie, which, hey, Eddie, next time we're gonna hang out too, so I won't give him too much flack. But while Mitch is pulling up this information, how do you keep your listeners engaged?
Oh my gosh, you have to mix it up. Like you can see, we work on glass and glazing one week, mass timber the next, the Woodwright Speaks, which Roy Underhill, I don't know if you've heard of him. He is the old school PBS woodworker. who used to use all hand tools. Like he would go out in the woods and he would build stuff with, just saws and, manual drills, and just, it's so cool. We had the chance to talk to him. And then we got a chance to, speak to some engineers and some technologists, and there are just so many things that you can explore in this industry. And so I feel like that's the way you keep people engaged, is that if you stay on one singular topic every single week, which is technology, this, technology, that, that's fine. That may work well for some people, but eventually it starts to get old. Eventually you start just kind of, people will fuzz out. They're not curious anymore. And so the two main things that Eddie and I focus on as a podcast is ideas and encouragement. One is that we really stink at sharing ideas in the industry, like fully sharing ideas. We're scared people are going to steal them, and we're going to lose money. Like that's really a scary thing for a lot of people. So we've kind of said, screw that. We might lose some money, but hey, I think we'll gain it in some just street cred or something like that, I guess.
For real.
Yeah. So ideas, and then encouragement, which is, we're in a pretty heavily male dominated industry. I think we know that, right? But at the same time, yeah, right. What? We really suck at encouraging each other. Like we really do. And we see that every day where we're at.
It's bonkers. I really thought when I was in the industry that I was getting flack because I was a female. No, some guys are, it's interesting. And I am grateful that you addressed that. Like, we just gotta be nicer together. You just wanna work with happy people. We are artists and we're really excited to use this medium, but all right. So I'm a hardcore nerd for this, because if I don't make sawdust every few days, I'm sad. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, oh, it's no fun. But what can young people, or those just sort of like thinking about the industry, learn from your podcast?
For me, in my take, it's just continued learning of multiple different trades. What we talk about all the time is a feedback loop. Is that we need a feedback loop for the industry. And general contractors feel this all the time, is that if their sub gets really frustrated at them over a job, they're never going to talk to that sub again. But the problem is that subcontractor might know something that might help grow your business if you don't develop some sort of feedback loop there. So what we're trying to do is do that virtually. So by talking to these different trades, by trying to just get in there and figure out the issues that they're having, we're bringing that feedback into our audience and saying, hey, general contractors, electricians, engineers, whoever's listening, take this for what it's worth. One of the things that we talk about is architects and engineers. We did a Gripes for Architects show that I swear people mention all the time, because we go in, Eddie and I, and we say, here are the issues that we have had in our line of work with architects. So maybe if you're an architect, just consider this, maybe use some grid lines on your project next time. That might help people.
Or go onto the job site and learn how gravity works in real life. Just
that could work too. And
oh gosh, yeah. I've met architects who really they'll take a 2x4 and cantilever it out 40 feet and be like, you got this. I'm like, can work with that in real life. Yeah, it's awesome, because it's not necessarily great, but that communication and starting it and saying, okay, it's okay to share, like, look, hey, if you help me out this way, it would make the job go easier. And really employing that lean manufacturing and not the mentality of construction is amazing. All right, so I found my nerd early in sawdust, but now students and young folks have all over the place. I play a lot of video games, and I used to take blueprints to job sites, and now I can take virtual reality goggles and, like, have people walk around and have, what?
Yeah.
I can imagine being overwhelmed as a young person on all the options. What are some of the advice, like, what's your advice for somebody who might get overwhelmed with all the different avenues to go down?
This is something that I've walked myself, because I didn't go down the traditional college path, right? So for me, the best thing that I can say to people is start. Pick a trade, one that interests you, right? If that's electrical, if that's plumbing, if that's whatever it may be, earth moving, you name it, start. There are companies out there that are looking for hands, and then learn how to be a helper. Learn how to be standing there with the tool before your employer needs it. That was something that Dad taught us growing up. When I was assisting my dad in a home project or anything else for that matter, what would get me yelled at the most is when he knew, or when I knew that he needed a hammer and I wasn't standing there holding it for him. That's the kind of thing that you're trying to develop when you're just starting, right? So learn how to be a helper, learn how to be an assistant. And then from there, you can grow into a lot of different avenues, right? So don't feel like you're going to need to just be the electrician's assistant the entire time or apprentice the entire time. You're going to grow into that electrician. And if you want to take from, electrical and then apply that over to, I don't know, project management, at a general contractor, you can make that hop. You can do. Yeah.
Oh, it is. I love that advice. Yeah, literally just start.
You're learning all over the place, right? You just need to get that experience. You need to get the field time. It's time in the seat that matters. And I think also your willingness to just get the job done. Just get the job done, and be a team player and try to help. Try to find remedies to problems instead of pointing at others and casting blame. That's the type of thing you need to go in with is just this attitude of being a helper. And that's the best place to start.
I absolutely love that, because the people that I will employ the longest, it is that helping mentality, but that also means they're cued into the job site and they want to learn more and they're understanding that there's a process. And so that means you're engaged and so you make a lot more money. All right, we often hear about technology coming in, and I don't know when a robot is actually going to come in and fix somebody's toilet. I just don't see that happening in like my lifetime.
Yeah.
But what kind of work do you see technology coming in and replacing the work of humans?
So right now we're seeing a lot of things that are assisted by technology. We're not necessarily seeing things that are going to be people that are being replaced by technology. My theory is that we will not be able to fully replace people in the construction industry until we replace all the people in the construction industry. Yes. So like, as long as we have people involved, we will need people to fix the problems, because artificial intelligence, at least for now, and I think for the foreseeable future, will have a really hard time trying to solve those complex idiosyncrasies that we all have as humans. I really think that it's going to have a hard time doing that. So I think right now our jobs are safe. I think right now that from a technology standpoint, I was looking the other day, I stumbled on this. It is called the, it was the Mortar Master or something like that. It's a bricklaying robot, all right? And we've seen these recently, and they were released recently. But this one was different because it was a video from the 1960s. It was a video from it was either the late 50s or early 60s of this bricklaying robot. And then you hear the copy of the person behind reading the script of this is going to help us build more homes more efficiently and all of these things. And they're basically talking in this voice of this is going to change the game. Guess what? It didn't. And now we have another bricklaying robot that came out in 2015. I'm like, okay, so we've done a bad job of helping the messaging in the industry move forward too, right? So if I'm trying to get a mass adoption of a robot or anything like that, I need to be very, very clear on my messaging and how that is going to help the people that are involved. And that's something that I don't feel like we've been able to do yet. So there's still a disconnect there. There are a lot of different reasons that I feel like robotics won't replace humans in the near future. I think we're probably 75-ish years away from that. I think there's going to be some replacement, but full-on replacement, I just do not think we're that far.
They're not going to be any good at the robo dance. So it's the robot they're just not going to get it. The Construction Brothers podcast has over 100 episodes. Is there one particular topic that you feel like you just cannot stop talking about?
For me, it's technology is not the answer. It's, it's one of those things where we have tech companies reach out to us all the time and ask to be on our show. And that's great. But after a while, and after reviewing and talking to a lot of these people, we started realizing, at least me and Eddie both, is that tech can be a crutch. Email can be a crutch. Even the simplest forms of technology can be a crutch and a thing that kind of cripples us as an industry. Technology is not the answer to our problems, because back to what I said, it's people. That's the thing that's going to solve the problem right now. Okay. It's how the people implement the technology that matters, not the actual technology. Technology doesn't really matter all that much, because if you have really good systems and processes in place, you may not even need it. The reason why we have so many apps is because we have so many stupid ways and stupid processes in place that we're trying to patch, that we're trying to fix, instead of coming back to the drawing board and saying, what makes the most sense? We always just hit the go button. We're just like, we're going to go, we're going to figure it out. And it's chaos, absolute chaos. So technology is not the answer. If anything, it just speeds up making crap quicker-ish sometimes.
Sure.
And putting us in bad places quicker. So for me, it's technology is not the answer. I think that would probably be the main one that I have as a takeaway.
I absolutely love it. And in fact, let's bring Scott back in. And I hope all of our friends check out your podcast to hear this, because it's a very important message. We want to encourage folks to get into the industry and realize all of the amazing potential, not have students or parents worried that their jobs will be replaced by robots. So Scott, what did you think about today's interview?
Well, I love Tyler's energy. I know we're going to be longtime friends. We have so much in common beyond just being fellow Georgians. But one of the things he said I really loved was learn how to be a helper. And we've heard that from multiple guests, over the last several months, Kayleen. One of our other guests said, when you're asked to go get something, learn what that thing is, learn what that tool is, ask about it, ask somebody, be curious. And so I love that advice. And then start somewhere, just start. And it reminded me, you both will appreciate this. Tyler, I've been reading about Henry Flagler and his development of Florida. It's a fascinating story if you ever want to read, more about him. But, he basically built this railway down into Florida, the East Coast Railway, all the way from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way down to Key West.
Yeah.
And the innovation that he had to do to make that happen. Oh, and he also built some really cool hotels along the way too, right? In St. Augustine and Palm Beach. But when you said that about starting somewhere, it reminded me of a quote that I read in his book. And he was talking about, so when he was 75 years old, he decided to extend his railway from Miami to Key West. If you know anything about that part of Florida, there's a lot of ocean and water that they're running a railway over in the early 1900s. So how in the world are you going to do that? And check this quote out. He said, "It is perfectly simple. All you have to do is build one concrete arch and then another, and pretty soon you will find yourself in Key West." So that speaks to starting somewhere, right? And so just fascinating. 75 years old, building this railway, building all these cool hotels. But thank you, Tyler. I appreciate you taking time to be with us and share your wisdom. And I'm looking forward to becoming friends and getting to know you and meeting Eddie at some point as well, and listening to your podcast. I have a new way to kill time in my car now when I'm driving around Atlanta. So I appreciate that.
Of course, Scott. Yeah, thank you.
Summer camp friends are absolutely the best. Tyler, thank you again for joining us. I would love if we could bring up your page, and do you have any last words you'd like to leave our fans with today?
Oh gosh. Well, for one, just, thanks for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here. And, Scott, yeah, excited to continue to get to know you, and you as well, Kayleen as well. And yeah, I guess for us, starter packs are a great place to just kind of figure out where to dig in first. And I think that we've got a lot of different things there that can be helpful to anybody looking to get into the trades or not. Specifically, Ken Rusk, if you're looking to get into the trades and start learning how to, turn ditch digging into a multi-million-dollar prospect, go check him out. That guy he was probably another one of our favorites, and would definitely speak, I think, to your audience as well. So just thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. I love it. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us for lunch, both Scott and Tyler. This was full of amazing information. And again, I hope everybody goes checks out the podcast on wherever you find and stream podcasts. So next week, make sure to tune in and join us, where we will be interviewing the Meta team, an all-female group of female contractors in the construction industry. So continuing the conversation, right? Woohoo! Geeking out with friends. So gentlemen, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week, and all of our fans will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, Kayleen. Thanks, Tyler. Have a good day.
Appreciate it.